Games based on shows and films have always been the black sheep in the gaming world. Sometimes they can blow away expectations by respecting the lore or at least being consistent with it, while other times being just outright laughable for being vastly different to the source material. Japan with these kinds of games is no exception. They've always gravitated towards fans of these particular IPs that catch their interest, but whether or not some of these games are made to be used as a cash grab, even if the game is excitable at least, is definitely up for debate. Kamen Rider is no different as it has had a history of games since its success, both good and bad, and let's just say most of them before Kabuto's tenure have been My first games to play for Kamen Rider alone are the Kamen Rider Battlefield War games from 2013 to 2016. Even if it's just Dynasty Warriors with Kamen Rider skins and abilities attached onto them, I had a lot of fun with them as well as getting to experience the hack and slash genre in this field, especially as my boy Decade, all 3 times. There are others I missed out since the era of region-free Kamen Rider games becoming a part of reality, but the other I picked up while in Japan was SD Shin Kamen Rider Rumble on the Nintendo Switch, which is cute and fun in its own right, but it definitely had some inaccuracies compared to the events that actually happened in the film, which I've done a retrospective on a while back. Though to be fair, the inaccuracies from my eyes are more visual than overall, especially from a language barrier perspective. 俺はオレンジが好きです. That's the extent of my knowledge on the language. Moving on. With the Blu-ray release of Shin Kamen Rider officially on the horizon in Japan, I thought why not look at the other piece of media that's been released to the public outside of the core film itself. Rather than the game being centered around the film, its structure and pacing is more or less a Chibi-ified recreation of the events that happened in the original 1971 series, with the Shin elements thrown in the mix as well, complete with a Shunsuke Kikuchi sounding OST. Take a listen. As for the story, it's the usual Hongo Takeshi gets kidnapped by Shocker Hongo must fight for justice plot, though we do see Ruriko rescue him like in the film, so points for that. But no professor here, unfortunately. He was the first to get redshirted. Your base is also the abandoned cabin like in the beginning of the film, which did not explode. But there are a couple of things you can do here. You can go to this laptop to boost your stats for each character as well as the Cyclone. The characters you play throughout your journey are as follows: Hongo Takeshi, aka Kamen Rider, then eventually Dai Nigo, Hayato Ichimonji, and after you beat the game, you unlock Dai Zero Go, Ichiro Midorikawa. If you go to this display piece, you'll see a collection of badges you'll collect throughout your journey as they'll give you additional stats like extra money or crystals being dropped amongst other things. Now you can choose to go to the far right side of the screen to play what's called Survival Mode, or the far left by where the Cyclone is at for Chapter Select, or in this case Episode. And you can choose to play either by yourself, with a computer, or with a friend. In each episode, your main objective is to beat up all the Shocker Grunts in each portion of the stage. The more damage you do as fastly as possible, the higher the grade. And there are a handful of other variants of Shocker soldiers, some of which are rocking staffs, shields, those fencing European sword things, I don't know what the fuck they're called, and Reggie Fizame. Okay, I'm sure that's not the intention behind the bigger grunts, but they really do look like Reggie cosplaying as a Shin Shocker Grunt to me. My body is ready! After you beat up a round of Shocker Grunts, you'll be given currency to either buy drinks from a vending machine to increase stats, or to put in an ATM. You'll even sometimes get a briefcase inside that'll carry some food or even a gift inside. And sometimes crystal shards on top of that. Not the kind from an RV. But other times, when facing a smaller horde of Shocker Grunts, you'll be given an optional objective. If you meet the quota before the time limit, you'll get an extra surprise briefcase. And then, when you're finished with the one section of the stage, you can choose between one of 2 paths to advance forward. Though it doesn't really change anything to the story. The only exception to when you have to use one path and one path only is when you have to come across the many Ogus. And while you do start out each stage in your civilian form, you do have a limited moveset for dealing with Shocker Grunts. Pressing L and R together will make you Henshin, where you have more attacks to pull off. And each character has a specific special move they use if you can time it just right with the cost of some prana, such as Kamen Rider having Rider Chop, or Dai Nigo having Rider Punch. And even after doing the Henshin, you'll even regain some health. Much like the film, the bosses are as follows. Episode 1 has Kumo Olgu, where you need to be mindful of his web slinging and web spewing abilities. Though once you beat an Olgu and collect the loot, it will show you to the next episode, as well as your character riding off to the next destination, similar to how the original series did with its pacing. And it's also worth noting that if you want to progress through this story, you're gonna have to constantly upgrade your Cyclone. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, you'll need to do a rider kick as it's required by law to do it in Gaijin fights. Or Olgu fights in this case. Which doesn't make them turn into soapy bubbles, but rather explode at will? Huh. And after that happens, much like Ruriko said in the film, it gets tougher from here. Episode 2 has Komori Olgu, where he throws poison at you, and it can seriously wreck your shit if you're not careful. And to add insult to injury, he also has this hypnotic beam of sorts that can stall your progression as well. He's hard as balls to fight unless you can flawlessly dodge his attacks. Though I will admit, compared to the film, it definitely beats just flying around and explaining his endemic scheme, at least. And the close-up shots, too. Like, I wish I brought that up in my retrospective, but why is it here? Episode 3 has Hachi-Olgu. She's super fast and can definitely slice and dice her way like no other. Her fight is also my favorite of the bunch. Episode 4 has you fight one round against Ichimonji, but also like in the film, you fight Keikei-Olgu as Ichimonji. But Ruriko is still around. Okay. What actual plot elements were carried over from the film into this game? Did the Muppets write the script? And finally, Episode 5 has both Hongo and Ichimonji coming across all 11 Shocker Riders. But make sure you also save your partner at all times when taking them down. And when that's done, you'll both come up against Ichiro himself, the Cho Olgu Dai Zero Go. If you thought the previous Olgus were balls to the walls hard, oh boy, are you gonna hate this one! Ichiro will charge up both his health and his shield at free will, so make sure to utilize all 5 Ds of Dodgeball tenfold. Especially in the second round where you think, oh shit, I finally defeated the final boss. Nope, much like in the film, he has OP Prana here, and he's also fucking fast. And it's also worth noting that instead of sacrificing their cyclones like in the actual film, Ichimonji actually destroys the Prana chair like it ain't no thing. But even with Ichiro cocooned in this state, you're gonna go through many hurdles and loops throughout this fight, even with the Shocker Grunts in the way of things. When you defeat him, Hongo also makes it out okay. Wait, what? Okay, so instead of having one rider sacrifice himself and use up all his prana, and have his mind be implemented into the helmet, and have another rider pass that well along, I guess the day is saved and, yeah, completely free from all of Shocker's chicanery. What even is life? Okay, we all know that's not what happens in the film. I guess maybe they wanted to lighten the tone for this kind of a direction, but who am I to judge? And it's also worth noting that in each episode there are some set pieces such as boxes, exploding barrels, pancake machines, the works. And while it's nice to have these things included to change the pacing, and it actually does add a little bit more challenge as well as give you a heads up on what's about to come your way later on, it doesn't really add that much to the game's structure and difficulty. I mean, even with Heaven mode for when you actually beat the core game, it's essentially the same thing as starting the game fresh new with no boost in stats during your progression, but your attack is doubled and there's no access to ATMs amongst other things. And to make things worse on the player, it's actually easier than the core game itself. It really should have been the other way around if you ask me. And had Bandai Namco do that, they'd probably make the game's post-game difficulty in that regard be called something like Shocker Jelly, I don't know. And since this is based off of a piece of Hideaki Anno's work, they also included some DLC that features one of the Eva units, Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman, as part of the Shin Japan Heroes Universe brand that Anno-san is affiliated with. I unfortunately missed out on these as you can no longer buy them as of last year. So, sorry Evangelion, Godzilla, and Ultraman fans. While the film had its own homages and elements from the series as well as the manga to pay love and respect for, this definitely feels episodic in its own nature, which is a nice inclusion to have, but it feels lackey with what you get for roughly $35. $40 if you choose to get the Asia English version. I mean, sure, it's nice to have Sosuke Ikimatsu, Tasuku Emoto, and Minami Hamabe reprise their roles as Hongo, Ichimonji, and Ruriko respectively, but even small voiceover lines can help basic gameplay so much. On one hand, I like the art direction and the episodic nature coexist with one another, which is a nice touch in this regard. But on the other, I can't classify this as a movie game paying full price for, especially with the lack of content put into this package if you're excluding the DLC. Hell, they don't even give you a Dai Nigo plus Dai Ichigo skin for once you beat the game, which is really disappointing because I love that suit as well. I'm still not over the lack of silver boots and gloves, but still, it's a beautiful recreation of that iconic suit. I mean, it's fun if you're a fan of Kamen Rider and if you love Shin Kamen Rider as much as I do, but for any newcomers in the franchise looking to play any game from the IP, there are better options out there. Come to think of it, between the episodic format nature of this game and the fact the fight against the Shocker Riders are in a factory like in a deleted scene, the Blu-ray will feature those two things as well as other things, but I'm pretty sure it's also coincidental if the structure of this game is based off of a first rough cut of the film, or any rough cut in general. Though, it's pretty unlikely this was a foreshadow of what's to come. But we'll never know. I mean, do I look like a guy who's actually seen the 2007 Phantom Blood movie all the way through? That's something I should ask you, the viewer. Well, regardless, it's a good thing fans like me spoke up about a Blu-ray release that wasn't an El Cheapo knockoff when we did. Even if it's only available in Japan and super pricey depending on the bundle you get, I will be looking forward to unboxing it when it comes in the mail. And I'm taking you with me. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. じゃあな。